In a lavish ballroom, filled with influential guests, a bride believed she was about to live the happiest moment of her life. Suddenly, in front of everyone, her future mother-in-law turned the celebration into a public humiliation, throwing ice-cold water on her and revealing a cruel scheme. Just when all seemed lost and the young woman was about to be thrown out, the doors swung open and an unexpected figure walked in, changing everyone's fate. In that instant, power, pride, and truth collided in a way no one in that room would ever forget. Before you hear this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of shocking twists and unexpected justice. The scent of fresh ink and the soft glide of a pencil on paper were Sophia's private paradise. In her small apartment, transformed into a vibrant studio, she brought ideas to life, turning them into graphic designs that told stories. In her early 20s, Sophia was living the full bloom of a passion that was intertwined with her very essence: art. Her days were filled with colors, shapes, and the freedom to create. A universe she had built with her own hands, far from any kind of extravagance but rich in authenticity. It was against this backdrop of simplicity and passion that Ryan appeared. He wasn't like the others. Heir to a real estate empire, Ryan seemed oblivious to the superficial glitz that surrounded him. His deep brown eyes saw in Sophia not the talented designer, but the woman with a light soul who found beauty in the little things. He genuinely admired her for her quiet life and for her art that spoke for itself. The relationship blossomed like a rare flower, nurtured by long conversations, sincere laughter, and the promise of a future that seemed hand-drawn. The proposal, it was worthy of a movie script. Romantic cliché Sophia never imagined she would live. At the top of one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, with the city lights twinkling like a carpet of stars below, Ryan got down on one knee. The ring, a discreet but intensely brilliant jewel, sealed a love that seemed unbreakable. Sophia, her heart overflowing with happiness, said yes through tears and smiles, believing this was the pinnacle of her life, the moment all her dreams aligned. But as in any good story, what seemed too romantic to be true really was. The first visit to the Adler mansion, Ryan's family home, was a reality check. The luxury was oppressive, and the imposing figure of Mrs. Beatrice Adler, Ryan's mother, loomed over everything like a shadow. Her cold, calculating eyes scanned Sophia from head to toe, evaluating every detail, every fiber of her being. The conversation, more of an interrogation than a chat, made the future mother-in-law's contempt clear. Beatrice made a point of comparing Sophia to a former flame of Ryan's, a woman who, in her words, represented everything a good marriage should have: money, a traditional last name, and the flawless appearance of a magazine cover. Sophia felt a blow but tried to stand firm. She believed that with time Beatrice would accept her, that the coldness would give way to a modicum of affection. Ryan, for his part, tried to smooth things over, promising that his mother was just a little demanding. Sophia, blinded by love and hope, wanted to believe him. The news that Beatrice insisted on organizing the engagement party initially seemed like a sign of a truce, an attempt to connect. Little did she know it was merely the prelude to a meticulously planned trap. Beatrice chose every detail of the party, from the lavish decorations to the exquisite menu. And of course Sophia's dress, an old-fashioned white dress, almost a theatrical costume, which the young woman agreed to wear only to avoid conflict, to not give her future mother-in-law any more reason to despise her. On the day of the party, upon arriving at the crowded ballroom, Sophia felt a chill. The atmosphere was one of cold elegance, and Ryan's distant, evasive behavior made her anxious. Her eyes then met those of an elegant, smiling woman chatting animatedly with Beatrice. It was Ryan's former flame, the woman who, in her mother-in-law's eyes, represented perfection. A dark premonition washed over Sophia. This was not her fairy tale. This was the stage for an imminent tragedy. The microphone was then handed to Beatrice. A tense silence fell over the ballroom. The mother-in-law's voice, once so polished, now sounded laced with disguised venom. She announced in front of dozens of guests that her son, Ryan, was engaged, but not to Sophia. The fiancée was the other woman, the one who represented the good marriage. Sophia's world shattered into 1,000 pieces. She tried to defend herself, but the words were lost in the shock. Beatrice, with a cruel smile, presented fake documents, claiming Sophia was an opportunist, a fortune hunter. And to seal the humiliation, she threw a glass of ice water in Sophia's face. The white dress, now transparent, revealed the young woman's fragility, while cruel laughter echoed through the ballroom. Humiliated, drenched, and about to be thrown out by security, Sophia believed nothing worse could happen. But at that exact moment, the ballroom doors burst open with overwhelming force. Sophia's brother entered, imposing, calm, wearing a priceless suit that looked like it had been custom-made for a king. It was Daniel, the billionaire, the titan of the investment world, whose existence Sophia rarely mentioned to avoid the shadow of his fortune. Seeing his sister wet, humiliated, and surrounded by guards, a dangerous glint lit up his eyes. He walked over to Sophia, covering her with his own coat, and with a firm voice that silenced the entire room, he revealed his identity. Beatrice, pale, tried to compose herself, but it was too late. Daniel's lawyer projected onto the large screen all the proof of Sophia and Ryan's 3-year relationship: messages, photos, trips, receipts, and the proof of purchase for the very expensive ring Ryan had bought. The lie crumbled before everyone's eyes. The situation worsened for the Adler family when Daniel revealed he was about to invest $500 million in their new venture, and that he had cancelled the whole thing minutes earlier. The family's financial future imploded instantly. As if that weren't enough, an audio recording played at the party revealed Beatrice and the new fiancé planning Sophia's public humiliation. Faced with this, the crowd that had once laughed now looked at the Adler family with disgust. Beatrice dropped to her knees, begging for forgiveness, but nothing could save her. Sophia, now empowered, returned the ring to her ex-fiancé and made it clear in front of everyone that she never needed the approval of those who only see value in money. 6 months later, the Adler empire had crumbled, Ryan had lost his status, and Beatrice became an object of public shame. Sophia, on the other hand, opened her own design studio and thrived, not because she was a billionaire's sister, but because she finally believed in her own worth. Thus, the day her mother-in-law threw water on her ironically became the day her true strength began to emerge. A story of downfall, revenge, and liberation, and of how a billionaire brother showed up at just the right time. What did you think of the outcome for the Adler family? The fall of the Adlers was as spectacular as their rise, a cruel reminder that power and fortune, when built on the shifting sands of arrogance and dishonesty, can crumble in the blink of an eye. Ryan, once the coveted heir, saw his world turn upside down. The last name that opened doors was now synonymous with scandal. The perfect fiancé, who was supposed to secure his future, abandoned him as soon as the dust from the scandal settled and the family's financial reality was revealed. He found himself alone, stripped not only of his fortune, but of his dignity, a puppet whose strings had been cut. Beatrice, the ruthless matriarch who had always controlled everyone and everything with an iron fist, got a bitter taste of her own medicine. Public shame consumed her. The doors that once opened for her with reverence now slammed shut with contempt. Malicious whispers followed her around every corner, and the empire she had so carefully guarded, and for which she had sacrificed her own son's happiness, disintegrated under the weight of her own choices. The woman who had humiliated Sophia with such cruelty now lived her own humiliation, an ironic and deserved punishment. Meanwhile, Sophia flourished. The 6 months following the fateful engagement party were a time of rebirth. The trauma of public humiliation, instead of breaking her, strengthened her. The ice water that drenched her that day washed away not only her makeup, but also the insecurities and the need for approval that, perhaps without realizing it, she had carried. Daniel, her brother, was a pillar of support, but he made sure Sophia understood that her success would be the fruit of her own labor. He offered the seed money for the studio, but the vision, the talent, and the passion were all hers. The Sophia brand studio opened its doors in a charming bohemian neighborhood, far from the corporate buzz, but close to the city's artistic soul. The space, once an abandoned warehouse, was transformed by Sophia into a sanctuary of creativity, with colorful walls, restored furniture, and an infectious energy. She didn't just want to create designs, she wanted to tell stories, to give a voice to brands that, like her, sought authenticity. And success came quickly and organically. Clients arrived, drawn not only by her flawless portfolio, but by the story of resilience that Sophia, without fanfare, represented. The irony of fate was palpable. The day that should have been the happiest of her life became the catalyst for her true happiness. The public humiliation, the mother-in-law's contempt, the fiancé's betrayal, all of it somehow set her free. It freed her from the pursuit of a love that wasn't real, from a life that wasn't hers, from an identity that didn't belong to her. She discovered that her strength came not from a last name or a bank account, but from her resilience, her talent, and her ability to rise again. Daniel, watching his sister blossom, felt a quiet pride. He knew his intervention at the engagement party was crucial, but the real credit belonged to Sophia. She didn't become a billionaire, but she built an empire of immeasurable value, the empire of her own authenticity and passion. Life, for Sophia, had become a blank canvas, and she was the artist, painting her own destiny with vibrant colors and firm strokes. However, the past, no matter how much one tries to bury it, always finds a way to resurface. And for Sophia, the shadow of the Adlers, though weakened, still lingered on the horizon, ready to cast new challenges in her path. After all, in a plot so intricate, twists are only a matter of time. Do you think Sophia is truly free from the past? Daniel's question about whether Sophia was free from her past echoed in her mind more often than she'd like to admit. Yes, she had thrived, her studio was a success, and the feeling of autonomy was intoxicating. But the truth is, certain scars, even invisible ones, take time to heal. The image of Beatrice throwing water in her face, the cruel laughter of the guests, Ryan's distant gaze, all of it still manifested in sporadic nightmares or moments of insecurity she fought to suppress. She tried hard to focus on the present, on the joy of creating, on the satisfaction of seeing her projects come to life. The Sophia brand studio became a refuge, a place where she could be herself, without judgment or others' expectations. Her small but dedicated team admired her not just as a boss, but as an inspiration. Among them, Lucas stood out, a talented young designer with a keen eye and a sense of humor that could always draw a smile from Sophia, even on the greyest days. Lucas was different from Ryan. He didn't have the air of an heir, the shadow of an ancestral fortune. He was authentic, passionate about his work, and had an infectious energy. They would spend hours discussing projects, exchanging ideas, and without realizing it, the line between professional and personal began to blur. Lucas truly saw her as Sophia, the artist, the strong and resilient woman, not as a billionaire's sister or a humiliated ex-fiancée. He made her, challenged her intellectually, and above all made her feel safe. Slowly, Sophia began to allow herself to feel again. The fear of letting go, of trusting, was still immense, but Lucas's constant, gentle presence started to break down the walls she had built around her heart. Together, they explored art galleries, frequented charming cafes, and amidst conversations about design and art, they shared pieces of their lives, their dreams, and their fears. One day, while they were working late on a complex project, Lucas surprised her with an impromptu dinner at the studio. The low light, soft music, and the aroma of home-cooked food created an intimate atmosphere. It was there, between laughter and knowing glances, that Lucas, with disarming simplicity, confessed his feelings. He didn't make a grand proposal or promise a future of luxury. He just said that he admired her, that he wanted her in his life, and that he was willing to wait as long as it took for her to feel ready. Sophia felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was different from the overwhelming and, in retrospect, superficial love she had felt for Ryan. With Lucas, it was a gentler, more constant flame, built on mutual admiration and respect. She still carried the marks of the past, But she realized she didn't have to be defined by them, that it was possible to love again, with more maturity and with the certainty that her worth depended on no one but herself. However, the universe in its infinite complexity rarely allows happiness to be a straight path, and as Sophia allowed herself to dream of a new beginning, the gears of fate were already turning, preparing new twists that would test her newfound strength. Do you think Sophia is ready for a new relationship, considering what she's been through? Lucas's question, though unstated, hung in the air. Was Sophia ready for a new relationship? She asked herself the same thing. The wound of humiliation was still fresh, and the disillusionment with Ryan had left a deep scar on her ability to trust. However, Lucas's presence was a balm. He didn't pressure her, didn't demand anything. He was just there, with his kindness, his good humor, and his genuine admiration. Sophia decided to give herself and Lucas a chance. Their dates became more frequent, the impromptu dinners at A. The studio gave way to strolls through the city, visits to art exhibitions, and long conversations under the starry sky. Lucas introduced her to a world of simplicity and authenticity that she, even before Ryan, had valued. He made her laugh with silly jokes, challenged her with intellectual discussions, and comforted her with a silent hug when she seemed distant, lost in thought. Little by little, the wall Sophia had built around her heart began to crumble. She found herself smiling more, feeling lighter. The shadow of the past, though still present, seemed to shrink in the light Lucas brought into her life. He didn't try to fill the void left by Ryan. He created a new space filled with affection, respect, and a complicity Sophia had never experienced. Daniel, her brother, watched Sophia and Lucas's growing closeness with a mix of satisfaction and caution. He trusted his sister's judgment, but the trauma she had suffered still worried him. During one of his rare moments off, Daniel invited Lucas to lunch. The conversation was formal at first, but Daniel, with his sharp insight, soon recognized the sincerity in Lucas's eyes and the depth of his feelings for Sophia. He saw that Lucas wasn't interested in the family fortune, nor in the status that being close to a billionaire could bring. He was genuinely in love with Sophia, the woman, the artist. Daniel's silent blessing was a relief to Sophia. She knew her brother's approval was important, not out of dependence but out of respect. Over time, Sophia and Lucas's relationship blossomed. They became a couple, with all the joys and challenges that entailed. Sophia's life, which had once seemed to be cut short by humiliation, was now following a new, more mature, more conscious course. The Sophia brand studio continued to thrive, and Lucas, in addition to being her partner in life, became an essential collaborator on the studio's most ambitious projects. The synergy between them was undeniable, and working together only strengthened the bond that united them. Sophia was happy, in a serene and profound way. She had found a love that valued her for who she was, not for what she represented. However, the world is a stage, and characters from the past rarely exit without a final act. As Sophia and Lucas built their future, the echoes of the past began to reverberate in unexpected ways. The Adler family, though in disgrace, still possessed connections and deep resentments, and fate, capricious as ever, was preparing a reunion that would test Sophia's resilience and the solidity of her new love. Do you think a reunion with the Adler family could shake Sophia and Lucas's relationship? The possibility of a reunion with the Adler family was a ghost. Sophia tried to ward off, but one she knew deep down was inevitable. Daniel's question, now echoed by my own mind, hung like a cloud over her newfound happiness. Could this reunion shake her relationship with Lucas? Sophia hoped not, but the uncertainty was a heavy burden. Sophia's studio, the Sophia brand studio, had become a benchmark for creativity and innovation in graphic design. Word of mouth, driven by the impeccable quality of the work and the inspiring story of its founder, attracted clients from various sectors. One day, Sophia's assistant announced a meeting with a potential new client, a major tech company looking for a complete overhaul of its visual identity. Sophia, ever the professional, prepared for the meeting with Lucas by her side. As they entered the conference room, the atmosphere shifted. Seated at the head of the table with a serious expression and the air of someone who had aged prematurely was Ryan Adler. The shock was mutual. Time had been cruel to him. The arrogance of before had given way to a veiled melancholy, and his once impeccable appearance now bore the signs of sleepless nights and worries. Ryan, to Sophia's surprise, was the new marketing director for the tech company. After his family's downfall, he had worked hard to rebuild his career, starting from scratch in a completely different industry. The reunion was tense. Lucas, noticing the change in Sophia's expression, discreetly squeezed her hand, a silent gesture of support. The meeting proceeded professionally, but with every exchange glance, every word spoken, the untold story between them hung in the air. Ryan, at times, seemed to look away, ashamed. At others, he fixed his eyes on Sophia, as if searching for something. Perhaps forgiveness, perhaps an explanation, perhaps just a remnant of what once was. At the end of the studio's presentation, Ryan, his voice thick with emotion, asked to speak with Sophia alone. Lucas, reluctant, agreed, but not before casting a protective glance at Sophia. Alone, Ryan tried to apologize, not in a grand way, but with a sincerity Sophia hadn't expected. He confessed how much he regretted his cowardice, for allowing his mother to humiliate her, for being weak. He spoke of his family's fall, the shame he felt, and how life had taught him hard lessons. Sophia listened in silence. Ryan's words didn't erase the pain of the past, but they brought a certain relief. She realized that revenge was no longer what drove her. Her strength came from within, from her ability to forgive, not for him, but for herself. She didn't forgive him verbally, but the absence of anger in her eyes was a sign. She simply said that the past was where it should be, in the past. Despite the initial tension, the Sophia brand studio ended up being hired by the tech company. Ryan, surprisingly, was the main advocate for the choice, arguing that Sophia's talent was undeniable. The forced collaboration put them in constant contact, and Sophia found herself facing a dilemma. How could she maintain professionalism in the face of such a painful past? And how would Lucas react to this unavoidable proximity? The reunion with Ryan didn't shake her relationship with Lucas, but it tested it. Lucas, with his maturity and confidence, understood the situation. He knew that Sophia's past was a part of her, and that overcoming it was an ongoing process. However, Ryan's constant presence, even if professional, was an uncomfortable reminder, and Sophia knew that, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore the complex feelings this new dynamic stirred up. Do you think Ryan has really changed, or is there something more behind his sincerity? The question of Ryan's sincerity hammered in Sophia's mind. Was it a genuine change, or was there a hidden agenda behind his apologies and his insistence on hiring her? Lucas, though confident in their relationship, also shared this caution. He watched Ryan with a keen eye, looking for any signs of manipulation. The collaboration between the Sophia brand studio and Ryan's tech company began. Sophia and Lucas dove headfirst into the project, which was ambitious and challenging. Meetings were frequent, and interaction with Ryan was unavoidable. He proved to be professional, respectful, and at times even helpful, offering valuable insights and praising Sophia's team's work. However, Sophia noticed small gestures, lingering glances, a certain melancholy in Ryan that made her question things. He didn't try to flirt, nor did he show any explicit romantic intentions. It was something more subtle, a kind of deep regret that seemed to permeate his every action. He spoke about his family's downfall with genuine sadness, about how life had forced him to re-evaluate his values and priorities. In one of the meetings, Ryan mentioned, almost casually, that his mother, Beatrice, was living in a small house in the countryside, far from the luxury and social life she had cherished. The news surprised Sophia. She had imagined Beatrice bitter, but not stripped to that extent. Ryan showed no pity, just a weary resignation, as if the situation were the inevitable result of years of wrong choices. Lucas, for his part, maintained an impeccable demeanor. He was professional, collaborative, and always showed his support for Sophia, both at work and in their personal time. He understood the complexity of the situation, the way the past was intertwined with the present, and he made a point of reaffirming his love and trust in Sophia, dispelling any shadow of doubt that might arise. Despite the initial tension, the project progressed by leaps and bounds. Sophia's team delivered exceptional work, and the tech company was impressed. Sophia's competence was undeniable, and Ryan, despite his past, was a demanding but fair client. One day after a particularly productive meeting, Ryan asked to speak with Sophia alone again. This time it wasn't to apologize but to make a request. He explained that the company was organizing a launch event for the new product, and he wanted Sophia, as the creative mind behind the new visual identity, to give a speech. He emphasized that it would be an opportunity for her to shine, to showcase her talent to an even larger audience. Sophia hesitated. The idea of being in the spotlight again, especially with Ryan nearby, made her uncomfortable. But Lucas encouraged her. He said it was her chance to show the world her strength, her art, and to finally break free from the shackles of the past. He reminded her that she was no longer the humiliated young woman, but the successful business owner, the talented artist. With Lucas's support, Sophia accepted the challenge. She began to prepare her speech, not just about the project, but about her journey, about the importance of authenticity and resilience. She knew that this event would be more than a product launch. It would be a milestone in her own story. And as she prepared, the question of Ryan's sincerity still lingered. But now Sophia felt stronger, more prepared to face whatever twist fate might have in store for her. Do you think Sophia's speech could bring more to light than just the project's success? The question was pertinent. Could Sophia's speech bring more to light than just the project's success? She knew it could. That stage, in front of an audience of investors, business leaders, and journalists, was a unique opportunity. Not just to celebrate her team's work, but to rewrite her own narrative, to show the world the woman she had become. The days leading up to the event were filled with intense preparation. Sophia reviewed every word, every slide, every detail of her presentation. Lucas was her confidant and her biggest cheerleader, helping her refine her ideas and manage the anxiety that sometimes crept in. He reminded her of her strength, her passion, and the impact her story could have. Ryan, for his part, maintained a professional demeanor, but Sophia noticed a different glint in his eyes, an expectation that went beyond the success of the product launch. He seemed genuinely interested in seeing her shine, in witnessing her rise. This observation, however, did not lessen Sophia's caution. She had learned not to trust blindly, to read between the lines. The big day arrived. The event hall was packed, with an atmosphere of excitement and anticipation. Sophia, looking flawless in an elegant modern dress, felt her heart race, but a strange calm also enveloped her. She was no longer the scared, humiliated young woman from the engagement party. She was Sophia Brand, the entrepreneur, the artist, the woman who had rebuilt her life with her own 2 hands. After Ryan's introduction, in which he gave a concise speech and praised the partnership with the Sophia Brand studio, it was her turn. Sophia took the stage to warm applause. The stage lights enveloped her, and she saw Lucas in the front row, smiling and giving her a thumbs up. Her eyes also met Ryan's, who was watching her with an intensity she couldn't decipher. She began by talking about the project, about the vision behind the new visual identity, about the passion and talent of her team. Her voice was firm, confident, and her words resonated with authenticity. But as she went on, Sophia felt the need to go further. She spoke about the importance of believing in oneself, of turning adversity into opportunity, of finding one's own voice amidst the noise of the world. Without mentioning names or explicit details, Sophia shared a bit of her journey, from her fall to her rise. She spoke about the pain of humiliation, about the importance of getting back up and building a path based on true values. She emphasized that success is not measured in figures alone, but by the ability to impact lives, to inspire, to create something meaningful. The audience listened, in silence, captivated by her story. Ryan in the audience seemed visibly moved. His eyes welled up and he looked away, as if Sophia's words had struck a deep wound in his soul. Lucas, beside him, felt an immense pride, a love that overflowed. At the end of her speech, Sophia received a standing ovation. The applause was deafening, and she felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had done it. She had turned her pain into strength, her humiliation into inspiration. And in that moment she realized the speech wasn't just about the project, it was about her own liberation. However, life, like a good soap opera, always has one last trick up its sleeve. As Sophia came down from the stage feeling victorious, a familiar figure approached her, an enigmatic smile on her lips. It was an elegant, older woman whom Sophia hadn't seen in years but recognized instantly. It was the mother of Ryan's former flame, the woman Beatrice had praised so highly, and her smile did not seem friendly. Do you think this new character could bring more secrets from the past to light? The enigmatic smile on that woman's face, the mother of Ryan's former flame, was an omen. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. Her mind, which had just been celebrating a personal victory, now braced for a new confrontation. The woman, whose name Sophia barely remembered, but whose image was etched in her memory as part of Beatrice's arsenal, approached with calculated elegance. Sophia Brand, isn't it? What an inspiring speech. You almost made me believe in fairy tales, she said, her voice soft but laced with a subtle irony. Her eyes, above all, analyzed Sophia, as if searching for flaws, for weak points. Sophia, now more experienced and armored with resilience, maintained her composure. Thank you for the compliment. My story isn't a fairy tale, but proof that reality can be more surprising, she replied, with a polite but firm smile. The woman laughed, a dry, humorless sound. Surprising indeed, especially when you have a billionaire brother to help rewrite the script, isn't that right? The jab was direct, and Sophia felt her blood boil, but she didn't give in to the provocation. Lucas, who was approaching, sensed the tension and placed a hand on Sophia's back, a silent gesture of support. The woman gave Lucas an appraising look, and a flicker of curiosity, or perhaps disdain, crossed her eyes. And who might this young gentleman be? Another collaborator on your journey of overcoming? She asked, with a tone that suggested Lucas was just another rung on Sophia's ladder. This is Lucas, my partner in business and in life, Sophia replied, emphasizing the word partner with a defiant look. The woman seemed unfazed. Ah, yes, the business world is full of interesting partnerships. But back to your speech, Sophia, you spoke of authenticity. It's a shame not everyone can afford to be authentic, is it? Sometimes circumstances force us to make difficult choices. Sophia felt there was something more behind those words, a veiled insinuation. We all make choices, ma'am, and we are responsible for them, she retorted. The woman smiled again, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Indeed, and some choices have consequences that span generations. But I don't want to spoil your night of triumph. I just wanted to congratulate you, and perhaps warn you. The past, dear Sophia, has a peculiar way of catching up to us, even when we think we've left it behind. With those cryptic words, the woman departed, leaving Sophia and Lucas with a sense of unease. Ryan, who had been watching the scene from a distance, approached with a worried expression. What did she want? Ryan asked in a low voice. Just to congratulate me, Sophia replied with an ironic tone, and to remind me that the past has a peculiar way of catching up, Ryan sighed. That's Patricia's mother. She's always been a complicated woman. But what did she say about choices and consequences? Did she imply something? Sophia looked at Ryan, and a new piece of the puzzle seemed to fall into place. She talked about difficult choices and consequences that span generations. What do you know about that, Ryan? Is there something I should know about Patricia or her family? Ryan hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. It's nothing important now. It's in the past. Just don't listen to her. She's always been bitter. But Sophia wasn't convinced. The way the woman spoke, Ryan's reaction, it all indicated there was more to the story than she knew. That encounter, which should have been just a celebration, had opened a new door to the past, a door Sophia felt she needed to explore. Do you think Ryan is hiding something significant about Patricia or her family? Ryan's hesitation and his attempt to downplay Patricia's mother's words only reinforced Sophia's intuition. There was something more, something Ryan didn't want or couldn't reveal. That unexpected encounter, instead of being a mere annoyance, had turned into a new mystery, a loose thread in the fabric of her past that now seemed to be unraveling again. Lucas, sensing Sophia's unease, led her to a quieter corner of the hall. "What was that about? Who was that woman?" he asked, concerned. Sophia explained to Lucas who Patricia's mother was and how she had been used by Beatrice to humiliate her. She implied something about choices and consequences that spanned generations. "And Ryan got visibly uncomfortable when I asked him about it," Sophia said, her brow furrowed. Lucas, with his analytical mind, began to piece things together. If Patricia was the perfect fiancée in Beatrice's eyes, and her mother seems to hold some resentment, maybe there's a story behind that perfection. Maybe Patricia wasn't so perfect after all, or maybe her family had its own secrets. The idea made sense to Sophia. Beatrice was obsessed with status and appearances. If Patricia represented the ideal, it was because her family, her last name and her fortune were impeccable. But what if they weren't? What if there was something rotten behind the facade? In the following days, Sophia's curiosity gave her no peace. She tried to focus on work, but her mind kept returning to Patricia's mother's words and Ryan's reaction. She knew that Daniel, her brother, had access to inside information about the city's most influential families. Reluctant to involve him in her personal dramas, Sophia hesitated, but the need to understand what was happening was stronger. Over lunch with Daniel, Sophia, as casually as possible, asked about Patricia's family. Daniel, with his sharp gaze, realized there was more to the casual question. Patricia's family, the Davenports? Oh yes, a traditional family with a weighty last name and a considerable fortune built in the construction sector. At least that's what it looked like, Daniel began in a tone that indicated the story wasn't so simple. "What do you mean, what it looked like?" Sophia asked, feeling her heart race. Daniel took a sip of water. "A few years ago, there was a scandal involving the Davenports construction company. Accusations of fraud, embezzlement, unfinished projects. The whole thing was hushed up, of course with a lot of money and influence, but their reputation was tarnished behind the scenes. And the fortune, well, it wasn't as solid as people thought. They were on the brink of bankruptcy, actually." Sophia was shocked. So, Beatrice knew about this. She knew Patricia's family was in financial trouble and still wanted Ryan to marry her. Daniel nodded. "Beatrice is a woman who plays chess, Sophia. She doesn't care about Ryan's happiness, but about maintaining the family's status and power. A marriage to the Davenports, even with their problems, would still be seen as a union of traditional families, and perhaps she saw an opportunity to rescue the Davenport fortune, or to benefit in some way." "But why would Patricia's mother be so bitter then?" Sophia asked. "Because probably Beatrice's plan didn't work out, or maybe she was deceived, or perhaps Patricia didn't want to be part of that game. It's hard to say. But one thing is for sure, the Davenport family isn't as perfect as Beatrice wanted to make it seem," Daniel concluded. Daniel's revelation opened Sophia's eyes to a new layer of manipulation and intrigue. Beatrice wasn't just a woman obsessed with status, she was a cold, calculating strategist, willing to use anyone for her own ends. And Patricia, the perfect fiancée, was perhaps just another piece in her game. Sophia felt a mix of anger and pity. Anger at the manipulation, pity for Patricia, who might have been a victim as well. That reunion with Patricia's mother wasn't just a reminder of the past, it was a key to unlocking even deeper secrets, secrets that could change Sophia's perception of everything that had happened. Do you think Sophia should seek out Patricia to better understand this story? The idea of seeking out Patricia, once unthinkable, now seemed like the only way to completely unravel the tangled web of secrets. Daniel's revelation about the Davenport family and Beatrice's manipulation cast a new light on past events. Patricia, the rival Sophia had so resented, might have been a victim just as much as she was. Sophia weighed the risks. What would Patricia think? Would she refuse to talk? Or worse, would she still harbor some resentment? Lucas, upon learning of Daniel's discoveries, supported Sophia's decision. "Knowing the truth, no matter how painful, is always the best path," he said, with his usual wisdom. Finding Patricia wasn't easy. After the downfall of the Adler family and the scandal involving the Davenports, Patricia had completely withdrawn from social life. Sophia, with Daniel's help, managed to get a contact. A week later, a meeting was set at a discreet cafe, far from prying eyes. Sophia arrived at the cafe with her heart pounding. Patricia was already there, sitting at a corner table, an untouched cup of tea in front of her. She looked different from the image Sophia remembered. The elegance was still there, but there was a melancholy in her eyes, a fragility Sophia hadn't expected. "Thank you for coming, Patricia," Sophia began, breaking the silence. Patricia just nodded with a sad smile. "I have to admit, I was surprised by your call. I figured the last person who would want to see me would be you." "I thought the same thing," Sophia admitted, "but things have changed. I found out some things about your family, about Beatrice, and I need to understand what really happened." Patricia sighed, and her eyes filled with tears. "Beatrice, she's a dangerous woman. She used me, Sophia. She used my family. She used Ryan. She made me believe I was doing the right thing, that I was saving my family from ruin." Patricia then began to tell her story. Her family's construction company was on the brink of bankruptcy, drowning in debt and scandals. Beatrice, knowing the situation, approached her with a proposal, an arranged marriage between Patricia and Ryan. In return, Beatrice would use her influence to hush up the scandals and inject capital into the Davenports' company. "I didn't want to," Patricia confessed. "I knew Ryan was with you, but my mother. She pressured me. She said it was the only salvation for our family, that I had a duty. Beatrice promised me you would be compensated, that everything would be done discreetly. I believed her." Sophia listened in shock. Beatrice's cruelty was even greater than she had imagined. "And the engagement party? The public humiliation?" Patricia shuddered. "That wasn't part of the plan. Beatrice told me it would be a simple announcement, that you would already be aware, and everything would be resolved amicably. I swear, Sophia, I didn't know she would do that. When she threw water on you, I was horrified. I tried to intervene, but my mother held me back. She said I couldn't. Ruin everything." Tears streamed down Patricia's face. "After your brother intervened and the truth came out, my family was completely ruined. Beatrice withdrew her support, and the construction company scandal came to light with full force. I lost everything, Sophia. My reputation, my family. I felt used, manipulated. I deeply regret getting involved in this." Sophia felt a wave of compassion for Patricia. She wasn't the villain Sophia had imagined, but a victim of Beatrice's machinations. The anger Sophia felt for Patricia dissipated, replaced by a painful understanding. They had both been pawns in a game of power and status. "I'm so sorry, Patricia," Sophia said sincerely. "I had no idea." Patricia wiped her tears. "I know you didn't. And I'm so sorry for what you went through. I should have been stronger. I should have refused. But I was desperate." The meeting with Patricia was cathartic for Sophia. The truth, however painful, brought closure. She finally understood the complexity of the situation, the web of lies and manipulations that Beatrice had woven. And in forgiving Patricia, Sophia felt she was forgiving herself, freeing herself from a weight she had carried for years. However, Patricia's story raised new questions. If Beatrice was capable of such manipulation, what else was she capable of? And what would happen if she tried to rise again, seeking revenge against those who brought her down? Do you think Beatrice, even in disgrace, still poses a threat to Sophia and her new life? The question hung in the air, dense and fraught with apprehension. Did Beatrice, even in disgrace, still pose a threat to Sophia and her new life? The conversation with Patricia had revealed the depth of the Adler matriarch's manipulation, her ability to weave intrigues and use people as mere pawns in her power games. Sophia knew that a woman with such ambition and lack of scruples wouldn't just disappear without a trace. Despite the liberation the truth brought, a hint of worry settled in Sophia. She shared everything with Lucas and Daniel. Lucas, with his pragmatic view, agreed that caution was necessary. People like Beatrice don't accept defeat easily. She may be wounded, but she's not dead, and a wounded animal is always dangerous, he warned. Daniel, for his part, had already anticipated this possibility. "I've been keeping a discreet eye on her movements. Since the fall, she's been isolating herself, but that doesn't mean she's inactive. On the contrary, her silence is what worries me most. She's planning something, Sophia, I'm sure of it." Daniel's revelation sent a shiver down Sophia's spine. She had underestimated Beatrice's persistence, the peace she had found with Lucas, the success of her studio. It all seemed fragile in the face of a potential new assault from her former mother-in-law. Days turned into weeks, and Sophia's life went on, but with a heightened sense of vigilance. The Sophia brand studio continued to thrive, and the partnership with Ryan's company surprisingly solidified. Ryan, after Sophia's conversation with Patricia, seemed even more relieved, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He became an unexpected ally, sharing information and warning Sophia of any suspicious movements that might come from his mother. In one of these warnings, Ryan informed Sophia that Beatrice had started meeting with shady figures from the financial market, people known for their dubious transactions and for operating in the shadows. She was trying to rebuild, but in an even more dangerous way, seeking shortcuts and questionable partnerships. Daniel intensified his investigation. He discovered that Beatrice was trying to acquire a small but strategic construction company that owned valuable land in the city's expansion areas. Her plan was to use this company as a front for new businesses, laundering money and rebuilding her empire, but now in an even more illicit manner. The news shocked Sophia. Beatrice hadn't learned her lesson. On the contrary, defeat had made her even more ruthless and dangerous. The threat was no longer just personal, it was professional, and it could affect not only Sophia, but also the market in which Daniel operated. The situation demanded action. Daniel, with his vast network of contacts and his influence in the market, began to devise a plan to expose Beatrice before she could cause more damage. He knew he would need concrete, irrefutable proof to bring her down for good. Sophia, for her part, felt stronger than ever. She was no longer the naive young woman who allowed herself to be manipulated. She had Lucas by her side, Daniel's unconditional support, and the experience of having overcome public humiliation. She was ready for whatever came next. However, fate, ever unpredictable, was preparing a twist that no one expected. A crucial piece of information, a missing link in Beatrice's past, was about to come to light. And this revelation would not only unmask the matriarch, but also shake the foundations of other influential families in the city, including Patricia's. Do you think this new revelation could have an even greater impact than the fall of the Adlers? The question resonated with the force of a thunderclap. Could this new revelation have an even greater impact than the fall of the Adlers? Sophia felt that it could. The complexity of Beatrice's web, the way she infiltrated different spheres, suggested that the ramifications would be profound. The mere idea that something even darker could come to light left her apprehensive but also determined. Daniel, with his team of investigators, delved deep into Beatrice's recent activities. The clues Ryan had provided, combined with Daniel's insight, began to paint a disturbing picture. The construction company Beatrice was trying to acquire, New Horizon, was a shell company used to embezzle funds and launder money from much larger schemes involving corruption and influence peddling in public infrastructure projects. But what truly shocked Daniel was the discovery of a recurring name in New Horizon's documents, the last name Davenport, not Patricia, nor her mother, but a distant uncle of Patricia's, a man who had apparently been Beatrice's mentor in her first steps into the world of illicit business. He was the true mastermind behind many of the schemes Beatrice was now trying to replicate. Daniel realized that the connection between Beatrice and the Davenports was much deeper than a simple arranged marriage. There was a history of complicity, of shared secrets that went back decades. The Davenport family, which Patricia and her mother were desperately trying to save, was actually rooted in corrupt practices long before the construction company's crisis. The salvation Beatrice offered Patricia was not an act of charity, but an attempt to reactivate an old criminal partnership. The revelation was a blow to Sophia. Patricia, whom she had forgiven and for whom she felt compassion, was linked to an even more intricate network of corruption. This didn't diminish Patricia's pain, but it added a layer of complexity to her story. She was a victim, yes, but also part of a system. Daniel, with the gravity of the situation in mind, called Sophia and Lucas for an urgent meeting. He presented the evidence, the documents, the connections. Beatrice isn't just trying to rebuild, she's trying to reactivate a criminal network that was dismantled years ago, and Patricia's uncle is the key to it all. If we can expose them, it won't just be the fall of Beatrice, but of a corrupt structure that has plagued this city for a long time. The magnitude of the discovery was overwhelming. Sophia felt the weight of responsibility. She was no longer just a graphic designer. She was at the center of an investigation that could shake the city's power structures. Lucas, by her side, was equally shocked, but his determination to support Sophia was unwavering. "We need more proof," Lucas said. "Something that directly links Beatrice to these illicit transactions. Something that can't be denied," Daniel agreed. "I'm working on it, but time is crucial. Beatrice is moving fast, and Patricia's uncle is a dangerous man with connections everywhere." The tension was palpable. Sophia knew she was about to enter a much bigger game than she had imagined. The personal revenge against Beatrice had transformed into a fight for justice, to unmask a network of corruption that affected the lives of thousands of people. However, the story, as always, had another twist in store. As Daniel and his team delved deeper into the investigation, an unexpected figure approached Sophia, bringing with her a crucial piece of the puzzle. It was Patricia's mother, the same woman who had approached Sophia at the launch event. She had discovered the truth about her brothers and Beatrice's involvement, and she was terrified. She had in her hands documents that could incriminate everyone, but she was afraid to hand them over. "Do you think Patricia's mother will really cooperate, or does she have her own agenda?" The question about Patricia's mother, whether she would cooperate or had her own agenda, hung in the air like a thick fog. Sophia, Lucas, and Daniel knew that in a game of such complexity, trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. The woman, whose name was Lucy, had sought out Sophia in secret, visibly shaken and afraid. The meeting took place at Sophia's studio after hours, under the pretext of a consultation for a personal project. Lucy was pale, her eyes restless, and her hands trembled as she held a folder of documents. "I can't take it anymore, Sophia," Lucy began, her voice thick with emotion. "I always knew my brother, Patricia's uncle, was involved in shady things, but I never imagined the depth of it. And Beatrice, she's a monster. She used my daughter, used my family, and now she's trying to drag me down with her." Lucy revealed that her brother, a man of few words and many dark connections, had approached her a few weeks ago, asking her to sign some documents related to the New Horizon construction company. He claimed it was to regularize some old family matters. Suspicious, Lucy had refused, but the pressure was immense. It was then that she began to investigate on her own and discovered the truth. Her brother and Beatrice were using New Horizon to launder money from corruption schemes. "I have proof, Sophia," Lucy said, opening the folder. "Copies of contracts, bank statements, emails, everything that links my brother and Beatrice to this corruption network. I know it's dangerous, but I can't live with this anymore. I want to protect Patricia, and I want the truth to come out." Sophia examined the documents, her eyes wide with the magnitude of the information. It was irrefutable proof, the link Daniel needed to dismantle the network. But Lucy's motivation was still an unknown. Was it just fear and a desire for justice, or was there something more? Daniel, who had been hiding in an adjacent room, listening to the entire conversation, emerged from his hiding place. Lucy was startled, but Daniel calmed her, explaining that he was there to protect them. "Mrs. Davenport, these documents are crucial, but we need to be sure that your cooperation is genuine." "What do you expect in return?" Daniel asked, getting straight to the point. Lucy looked at Daniel, and her eyes filled with a determination Sophia hadn't seen before. "I don't want anything for myself, Mr. Brand. I just want my brother and Beatrice to pay for their crimes, and I want Patricia to be protected. She didn't know anything, I swear. She was manipulated just like Sophia." Daniel, with his experience in dealing with people, sensed the sincerity in Lucy's words. Her fear was real, and her desire to protect her daughter was palpable. He knew that Lucy was a key piece in unraveling the entire scheme. With the evidence in hand, Daniel and his team worked tirelessly. The complexity of the corruption network was staggering, involving politicians, business leaders, and influential figures in the city. With each new discovery, the scope of the problem grew, and the certainty that Beatrice was just the tip of the iceberg solidified. Sophia, Lucas, and Patricia, who was informed by her mother about the cooperation with Daniel, united in an unlikely alliance. Patricia, shocked by the truth about her uncle, felt even more betrayed and determined to help expose the truth. The three women, once rivals, were now united by a common purpose: to unmask Beatrice and the corruption network she represented. However, with every step they took, the feeling of being watched grew. Beatrice, with her tentacles extended, seemed to have eyes and ears everywhere. Lucy's delivery of the documents, as secret as it was, could have been noticed, and if Beatrice discovered the betrayal, the consequences would be unpredictable. Do you think Beatrice already knows that Lucy is cooperating with Daniel? The question, does Beatrice already know that Lucy is cooperating with Daniel, hung like the sword of Damocles over the heads of Sophia and her allies. With each passing day, the tension mounted. Daniel and his team worked in absolute secrecy, analyzing the documents provided by Lucy and building the case against Beatrice and the corruption network. Lucy, for her part, lived in constant apprehension. She knew her brother was a dangerous man, and that Beatrice would not hesitate to use any means necessary to protect her interests. Patricia, though shocked by the revelations about her uncle, was determined to support her mother and Sophia. The unlikely alliance between the three women grew stronger each day, united by a desire for justice and the need to expose the truth. As the investigation progressed, Sophia and Lucas continued their routines at the studio, trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. However, the shadow of the threat loomed over them. Small incidents began to occur. Strange. Emails, anonymous phone calls, the feeling of being followed. They were subtle signs, but enough to heighten their paranoia. One day, upon arriving at the studio, Sophia found the door broken in. Nothing had been stolen, but the place was ransacked, as if someone had been looking for something specific. Sophia's blood ran cold. It was a warning. Beatrice knew. Daniel was immediately called. He reinforced security at the studio and Sophia's home, and advised Lucy to stay in a safe place, out of reach of her brother and Beatrice. The investigation had to be accelerated. Daniel's team discovered that Beatrice, through her contacts, had intercepted some of Lucy's communications, raising suspicions about her cooperation. She didn't have concrete proof, but the seed of distrust had been planted. The break-in at the studio was an attempt to find the documents Lucy had given to Sophia. The situation became critical. Daniel knew he had to act fast before Beatrice could retaliate more aggressively. He decided it was time to involve the authorities, but with caution. The corruption network was so vast that there was a risk of information leaks if he didn't choose the right people. He contacted a police captain he trusted, a man of integrity with an impeccable record. He presented the preliminary evidence, explaining the complexity of the case and the need for absolute secrecy. The captain, shocked by the magnitude of the corruption, agreed to collaborate, setting up a special investigation team. Meanwhile, Beatrice, feeling cornered, began to move her pieces. She knew Lucy was the weak link, and that the documents she possessed could be her ruin. She ordered her accomplice, Patricia's uncle, to act. On a rainy night, Lucy, who was staying in a secure apartment provided by Daniel, received an unexpected visitor. It was her brother. He didn't come with threats, but with a desperate plea. He said that Beatrice had discovered everything, and that if Lucy didn't hand over the documents and retract her statements, he and Patricia would be the next targets. He begged her to think of her daughter's safety. Lucy was at a crossroads. Threatening Patricia was the lowest blow Beatrice could deliver. Lucy's fear was genuine, and she knew Beatrice would not hesitate to carry out her threats. Sophia, upon learning of the blackmail, felt a surge of anger. Beatrice was crossing every line, but she also knew they had to protect Lucy and Patricia. Daniel, with the help of the captain, devised a plan. They would use Beatrice's blackmail to their advantage, turning it into a trap. The plan was risky, but it was the only chance to catch Beatrice red-handed and dismantle the entire network. Sophia, Lucas, Lucy, and Patricia were at the center of this operation, each with a crucial role to play. The final battle was about to begin. Do you think Daniel's plan will succeed, or will Beatrice manage to escape once again? The question hung in the air, thick with suspense. Would Daniel's plan succeed, or would Beatrice manage to escape once again? The uncertainty was palpable, but the determination of Sophia and her allies was unshakable. Daniel's plan was audacious and relied on the courage of Lucy and Patricia. The trap was set. Lucy, under the guidance of Daniel and the police captain, agreed to fake a retraction. She would contact Beatrice, claiming she regretted her cooperation and was willing to hand over the original documents in exchange for the safety of Patricia and her brother. The meeting place would be a discreet restaurant with strategically placed security cameras and a team of undercover police officers. Patricia, for her part, had a crucial role. She would accompany her mother, serving as bait and an eyewitness to the blackmail. The young woman, once so fragile, now showed surprising strength and resilience, driven by a desire for justice and the need to protect her mother. Sophia and Lucas, though not directly at the meeting place, would monitor everything from an operations center set up by Daniel. They would be the eyes and ears, ready to activate Plan B if anything went wrong. The day of the meeting arrived. The tension was almost unbearable. Lucy and Patricia, dressed discreetly, entered the restaurant. Beatrice was already there, sitting at a reserved table, a cold, calculating smile on her lips. She looked victorious, believing she had managed to break Lucy. The conversation began. Lucy, her voice trembling but firm, explained that she had been frightened by the threats and was willing to hand over the documents. Beatrice, with her usual arrogance, demanded the originals, suspicious of the copies Lucy had given to Daniel. "I have them with me," Lucy said, pointing to a folder in her purse, "but I want a guarantee that Patricia and my brother will be safe and that you won't bother us anymore." Beatrice laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Are you in a position to negotiate, Lucy? You're the one indebted to me. But to end this farce, I accept your terms. Hand over the documents." The moment Lucy extended the folder, Beatrice made a subtle gesture to a man sitting at a nearby table. It was Patricia's uncle. He stood up and approached the table with a menacing look. "Did you really think I was that naive, Lucy?" Beatrice said with a sneer. "I knew you were betraying me, and now you and your daughter are going to pay for it." That was the signal. Before Patricia's uncle could act, the undercover officers rose from their tables and surrounded Beatrice and her accomplice. The captain, who was disguised as a waiter, approached and announced their arrest. Beatrice, shocked, tried to resist but was restrained. Her face, once so arrogant, was now contorted in a mixture of anger and despair. Patricia's uncle was also arrested, offering no resistance. The operation was a success. The restaurant's security cameras had recorded the entire scene, and the original documents, which Lucy had hidden in a secret compartment of her purse, were handed over to the captain. Sophia and Lucas, upon receiving the news, felt an immense relief. Justice was being served. Beatrice's downfall was not just a personal victory for Sophia, but a triumph of justice over corruption. In the following days, the news of Beatrice's arrest and the dismantling of the corruption network made headlines. The scandal shook the city's power structures, revealing the rot that hid behind respectable facades. Lucy and Patricia, with Daniel's help, were protected and testified against Beatrice and her brother. Their courage was crucial to the success of the operation. Sophia's life, which had been so tumultuous, finally found a path of peace and purpose. She had overcome humiliation, unraveled the secrets of the past, and contributed to justice. Her studio thrived, and her relationship with Lucas grew stronger every day. However, the story was not yet over. Beatrice's fall created a power vacuum, and new figures, with their own interests and ambitions, would begin to emerge. And in a world where power and money dictate the rules, vigilance could never be abandoned. Do you think Beatrice's arrest will be the end of all problems, or will new threats emerge? The question echoed, almost like a premonition. Would Beatrice's arrest be the end of all problems, or would new threats emerge? Sophia, Lucas, and Daniel knew that victory, however significant, rarely meant the end of the battle. Human nature, with its complex ambitions and desires, ensured that the power vacuum left by Beatrice's fall would be quickly filled. The months following Beatrice's arrest were filled with intense repercussions. The corruption network scandal, detailed by newspapers and news reports, shook the city's political and business structures. Several influential figures were investigated, and some were even arrested. The city, once complacent, with veiled corruption, was forced to confront its own demons. Beatrice and her accomplice were sentenced to long prison terms, and the Adler family, already in decline, saw its name dragged even further through the mud. Ryan, who had cooperated with Daniel's investigation, managed to distance himself from his mother's image, but the weight of the last name was still a burden. He continued his work at the tech company, maintaining a professional and respectful relationship with Sophia. Lucy and Patricia, after testifying, were placed in a witness protection program for a time until the dust settled and their safety was guaranteed. Patricia, free from the shackles of her family and her mother's expectations, decided to start over. She enrolled in an interior design course, inspired by Sophia's passion for art and her ability to rebuild. The Sophia brand studio thrived like never before. The visibility Sophia gained from her courage and her story of resilience attracted new clients and even more challenging projects. Lucas, her partner in life and business, was her safe harbor, her rock. Together they built not only a creative empire but a life based on solid, authentic values. However, the peace was tenuous. Daniel, with his network of information, warned Sophia about the emergence of new players on the political and business scene. People who, once in Beatrice's shadow, now saw an opportunity to rise, using methods just as, if not more, questionable. Corruption was a hydra, and cutting off one head didn't guarantee the monster's death. One of these new players was a real estate developer, a man named Dr. Wallace. He was known for his unbridled ambition and his ability to adapt to any scenario. Dr. Wallace began acquiring the Adler family's assets that went to auction, including the old mansion where Sophia had been humiliated. He seemed to be building his own empire on the ruins of others. Sophia felt a chill when she learned that Dr. Wallace had bought the mansion. It was as if the past, somehow, was trying to rise again, but with a new face. She had no proof, but her intuition told her that Dr. Wallace was not just an opportunistic businessman. There was something more, something dark about his meteoric rise. Daniel, who was already investigating Dr. Wallace, confirmed Sophia's suspicions. Dr. Wallace had connections to figures even more powerful and dangerous than Beatrice. He was a master of dissimulation, operating behind the scenes, manipulating people and events with a calculated coldness. The new threat was not personal like Beatrice. It was systemic, a force that sought to control the city's power and wealth in an even more comprehensive way. Sophia realized that her fight for justice was not over. It had just entered a new phase, and amidst this new reality, an unexpected figure reappeared in Sophia's life. It was an old college classmate, a brilliant and charismatic man who had become a renowned lawyer, specializing in environmental law. He approached Sophia for a partnership on an urban revitalization project, a project that, coincidentally, involved land that Dr. Wallace was eyeing. Do you think this old college classmate could be a valuable ally, or might he also have a hidden agenda? The question about the old college classmate, whether he would be a valuable ally or had a hidden agenda, was crucial. In a landscape where trust was such a scarce commodity, Sophia had to be cautious. The man in question was Richard Miller, a name that evoked memories of heated debates in college, ambitious projects, and a sharp intellect. Richard had become a renowned attorney, known for his ethics and his passion for environmental and social causes. He approached Sophia with a proposal that at first glance seemed perfect, a partnership for an urban revitalization project aimed at transforming a blighted area of the city into an ecological park and a cultural center. The project was ambitious, innovative, and most importantly, aligned with Sophia's values. However, There was one detail that set off an alarm for Sophia. The land targeted by Richard's project was the same land Dr. Wallace was trying to acquire. A coincidence? Or was there something more behind Richard's proposal? Sophia, with the experience she had gained, decided to investigate. She shared Richard's proposal with Daniel and Lucas. Daniel, with his network of information, quickly looked into Richard's background. The result was impeccable. Richard Miller was, indeed, an upstanding attorney. With a history of fighting against corruption and real estate speculation, he was an idealist, a man who believed in the power of the law to promote social justice. Still, Sophia's caution did not wane. She knew that in such a complex power game, even the most well-intentioned could be used as pawns. She decided to accept the partnership with Richard, but with a watchful eye observing every move, every detail. The collaboration between the Sophia Brand studio and Richard's law firm began. Sophia and her team dove into the revitalization project, creating a visual identity that reflected Richard's vision, a greener, more humane and more just future for the city. Lucas, with his talent and sensitivity, was instrumental in creating the pieces that communicated the project's essence. Richard, for his part, proved to be an exemplary partner. He was passionate, dedicated and extremely competent. He shared with Sophia his concerns about real estate speculation, about how money and power corrupted the ideals of urban development. He mentioned, without knowing Sophia's connection to Daniel, that Dr. Wallace was one of the biggest obstacles to the project, a man without scruples who saw only profit where Richard saw community. With each passing day, Sophia's admiration for Richard grew. He was a man of principle, a true ally in the fight against the dark forces threatening the city. The professional partnership began to transform into a friendship, based on mutual admiration and shared ideals. However, Dr. Wallace's rise continued. He had managed to acquire the Adler mansion and was aggressively expanding his business, buying up land and companies at a rapid pace. He seemed to have a larger plan, a vision of control that went beyond simple real estate speculation. Daniel, who continued to investigate Dr. Wallace, discovered that he had ties to a group of foreign investors, a shadowy investment fund, known for its predatory practices and its ability to destabilize local economies. Dr. Wallace was not just an ambitious businessman, he was the representative of an even greater force, a force that sought to control the city's resources. The situation became even more complex. Richard's project, which aimed to protect the city from speculation, now became a point of direct conflict with the interests of Dr. Wallace and his investors. Sophia realized she was at the center of a much larger battle than she had imagined, a battle that could define the city's future. And in the midst of this battle, new information emerged, information that linked Dr. Wallace to an event from Sophia's past, an event she had tried to forget. It was a subtle connection, but one that, if confirmed, could change everything. Do you think this connection to Sophia's past could be the key to unmasking Dr. Wallace? The question resonated in Sophia's mind. Could this connection to her past be the key to unmasking Dr. Wallace? Sophia's intuition, sharpened by so many twists and turns, told her yes. In such a complex chess game, every piece, no matter how small, had its role. The information came from an unexpected source. Patricia. After the success of the operation against Beatrice, Patricia had enrolled in an interior design course and, in one of her classes, met a classmate who worked as an archivist at a real estate records office. This classmate, upon learning of Patricia's involvement with the Adler family and the recent rise of Dr. Wallace, mentioned a curious detail. Years ago, when the Davenport Construction Company was at its peak, there was a large-scale project that was mysteriously abandoned. The land, of inestimable value, ended up being sold for a ridiculously low price to a shell company, which shortly thereafter resold it for an exorbitant profit. The name of the final buyer: Dr. Wallace. Patricia, upon hearing the name, felt a chill. She knew that her uncle, Lucy's brother, had been responsible for that project. The coincidence was too great to be ignored. She immediately contacted Sophia. Sophia, upon hearing the story, felt a piece fall into place. The abandoned project of the Davenport Construction Company, the land sold for a pittance, Dr. Wallace as the final buyer. It all pointed to a connection with the corrupt past that Daniel had uncovered. She shared the information with Daniel and Richard. Daniel, with his experience in financial investigations, saw the potential of the lead. If we can prove that Dr. Wallace benefited from a corruption scheme involving the Davenport Construction Company, we'll have powerful leverage against him. It would link him directly to Beatrice's past and the corruption network we dismantled. Richard, for his part, saw the opportunity to strengthen the urban revitalization project. If the land was acquired illicitly, we can challenge the ownership and reverse the situation, making it part of the ecological park. It would be a double blow, unmasking Dr. Wallace and securing a better future for the city. The team mobilized. Daniel and his investigators began to scour the records office archives, searching for the documents that would prove the fraudulent transaction. Richard, with his legal expertise, prepared the legal strategy to challenge the ownership of the land. Sophia, with her creative vision, began to develop a public awareness campaign, showcasing the land's potential for the community and exposing the risks of real estate speculation. She knew that public opinion would be a powerful weapon in the fight against Dr. Wallace. The investigation revealed that the land had been irregularly expropriated from small landowners with the promise of compensation that was never paid. The Davenport Construction Company, under the influence of Patricia's uncle, had acted as an intermediary in the scheme, facilitating the acquisition of the land by Dr. Wallace. The connection to Sophia's past was even deeper. One of the small landowners, who'd been dispossessed, was an old neighbor of her family, an elderly man who had lost everything and died of a broken heart shortly after. Sophia remembered her mother's sadness at seeing the neighbor's suffering. That land, which was now the center of the dispute, carried a history of injustice that touched her personally. The discovery of Dr. Wallace's connection to the illegal expropriation scheme and the Davenport Construction Company was the key Daniel needed. He had irrefutable proof that Dr. Wallace was not just an ambitious businessman, but a criminal who profited from corruption and exploitation. However, Dr. Wallace was not an easy opponent. He had power, influence, and a network of contacts that extended through all levels of society. He knew he was being investigated and began to move his pieces, trying to intimidate Sophia, Daniel, and Richard. Veiled threats, subtle sabotage, all to try to halt the investigation. The final battle was approaching. Sophia, Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia were united, stronger than ever. They knew they were facing a powerful enemy, but truth and justice were their strongest weapons. And this time they would not back down. Do you think Dr. Wallace will try to use Sophia's past against her to discredit her? The question was pertinent and unfortunately likely. Would Dr. Wallace try to use Sophia's past against her to discredit her? Sophia's experience with Beatrice had taught her that, for unscrupulous people, there were no limits in war. And Dr. Wallace, as Daniel had warned, was even more dangerous. Dr. Wallace's veiled threats began to intensify. Anonymous articles on gossip blogs and small online newspapers started to circulate, insinuating that Sophia Brand was an opportunist who was taking advantage of her brother's fortune to launder her image after a personal scandal. The articles were vague, but enough to plant the seed of doubt in the public's mind. Sophia felt the blow. The scars of the past, which she thought had healed, began to ache again. Lucas, sensing her distress, was her pillar. "They're scared, Sophia. They're trying to destabilize you because they know you're close to the truth," he comforted her. Daniel, with his legal team, acted quickly to take down the defamatory articles and identify the sources. Most led to shell companies linked to Dr. Wallace. The strategy was clear: divert focus from the investigation into him and attack Sophia's credibility. Richard, the attorney, also spoke out publicly in defense of Sophia, praising her integrity and her work on the urban revitalization project. He knew that the best defense was a good offense, and that the truth, no matter how they tried to distort it, would prevail. Despite the attacks, Sophia refused to back down. On the contrary, Dr. Wallace's attempt to use her past against her only strengthened her resolve. She knew she was not alone. She had Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia by her side. And most importantly, she had the truth. Daniel's team, with the new information, provided by Patricia and the in-depth investigation, managed to gather irrefutable proof of Dr. Wallace's connection to the illegal expropriation scheme and money laundering. They discovered that Dr. Wallace had used a series of shell companies to acquire the land for a ridiculously low price, and that the funds for this acquisition came from offshore accounts linked to a complex international corruption scheme. The scale of Dr. Wallace's operation was staggering. He wasn't just a local corrupt figure. He was part of a global network of financial crimes. His downfall would not only be a blow to the city, but to an entire criminal structure. Daniel, with the help of his trusted police captain, prepared a complete dossier with all the proof and evidence. He knew he needed a moment of impact to present the case to the authorities and the media to ensure that Dr. Wallace couldn't use his influence to hush up the scandal. The chosen moment was a press conference called by Dr. Wallace to announce a new real estate development precisely on the land he had acquired illicitly. It was the perfect opportunity to unmask him in public. Sophia, Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia would be present at the conference, each with a crucial role to play. Lucy and Patricia, with their personal stories, would be the voices of the victims. Richard, with his legal expertise, would present the legal arguments. Daniel, with the evidence, would expose the scheme. And Sophia, with her voice and her story of resilience, would be the face of the resistance. The tension was palpable. Dr. Wallace, on his podium, with a confident smile, began to present his grand project. He spoke of progress, development, and the future of the city, while Sophia and her allies prepared for the counterattack. However, an unexpected detail emerged. Ryan, who had been invited to the press conference as one of the local business leaders, approached Sophia before it began, with a serious expression. "Sophia, I've heard some rumors. Dr. Wallace has a plan B. He's going to try to expose you not just about your engagement, but about something older, something he found out about your family. Be careful." Ryan's revelation put Sophia on high alert. What else could Dr. Wallace have discovered? What was in her family's past that could be used against her? The final battle was about to begin, and Sophia knew she had to be prepared for anything. Do you think this new revelation about Sophia's family's past could be something Sophia herself is unaware of? The question was unsettling. Could this new revelation about Sophia's family's past be something Sophia herself was unaware of? The possibility of buried secrets, capable of being unearthed and used against her, was an unexpected blow. Ryan's warning, though vague, planted a seed of apprehension in Sophia's heart. The press conference began. Dr. Wallace, with his polished oratory and confident smile, expounded on the benefits of his new development, painting a picture of prosperity and innovation. He spoke of the Adler mansion, now his, as a symbol of a new beginning for the city. Sophia, Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia were strategically positioned in the audience, waiting for the right moment to act. The tension was almost unbearable. The journalists, eager for a good story, recorded Dr. Wallace's every word. When Dr. Wallace opened the floor for questions, Richard was the first to speak. With his firm, articulate voice, he questioned the legality of the land acquisition, presenting the initial evidence of fraud and illegal expropriation. The journalists, sensing a scandal, began to murmur and turn their cameras toward Richard. Dr. Wallace, caught off guard, tried to discredit Richard, calling him a sensationalist lawyer and a radical activist. But Richard, armed with facts and documents, did not back down. He presented the evidence Daniel had gathered, linking Dr. Wallace to the corruption scheme that involved the Davenport Construction Company. The press conference descended into chaos. Journalists bombarded Dr. Wallace with questions, and he, visibly annoyed, tried to defend himself. It was then that he decided to play his trump card. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," Dr. Wallace said with a cynical smile. "Before we listen to these baseless accusations, perhaps we should look at the source. Ms. Sophia Brand, who presents herself as a champion of justice, has a, let's say, interesting past, and her family, Ms. Brand, also keeps a few secrets." He paused dramatically, and all eyes turned to Sophia. "Your family, Ms. Brand, is not as clean as you would like people to believe. Your father, Mr. Robert Brand, was not just a successful businessman. He had a partner, a man who was mysteriously murdered years ago. And the Brand family fortune, Ms. Sophia, was built on the ruins of that tragedy." Dr. Wallace's words hit Sophia like a lightning bolt. Her father, a murdered partner, her family's fortune built on a tragedy? She had no idea what he was talking about. Her parents had never mentioned anything about it. Lucas, by her side, squeezed her hand, trying to calm her. Daniel, with a shocked expression, looked at Sophia, as if he too were hearing this for the first time. Dr. Wallace continued, his voice triumphant. "The murdered partner's name was Charles Edward, and the case, Ms. Brand, was mysteriously closed. But I have proof, documents that show your father benefited immensely from his partner's death, and that the Brand family, Ms. Sophia, has a past as dark as my own." The journalists, hungry for more, began shouting questions at Sophia. She was in shock, her mind reeling. Dr. Wallace's accusations were serious, and the way he delivered them with such conviction made her doubt everything she knew about her own family. Daniel, recovering from the shock, intervened. "This is a desperate attempt to divert focus, Dr. Wallace. The accusations against you are based on irrefutable facts and evidence. Don't try to tarnish the reputation of an honorable family with lies and insinuations." But the damage was done. The doubt had been planted. Sophia, who had prepared to unmask Dr. Wallace, now found herself at the center of a new scandal, a scandal involving her own father, and a past she knew nothing about. The press conference ended in an uproar. Dr. Wallace, though cornered by Daniel and Richard's evidence, had managed to sow discord and divert attention. Sophia, stunned, was supported by Lucas. She knew she had to find out the truth about her father's past. The fight against Dr. Wallace had become a search for her own history. Do you think Sophia's father really hid something so serious, or is Dr. Wallace manipulating the truth? The question was the most painful of all. Did Sophia's father really hide something so serious, or was Dr. Wallace manipulating the truth? Sophia's mind, once so focused on justice, was now plunged into a storm of doubts and fears. The image of her father, a man she had always admired and who represented integrity, was being tarnished by terrible accusations. After the press conference, Sophia, Lucas, and Daniel gathered in a safe location. The shock was visible on everyone. Daniel, who had known the Brand family for years, was visibly shaken. "I've never heard anything about this, Sophia. Your father was always a man above reproach. Dr. Wallace is desperate, and he's using dirty tactics." But the seed of doubt had been planted. Sophia needed the truth. "I need to talk to my mother," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "She has to tell me what happened." The conversation with her mother, Helen, was even more painful than Sophia had imagined. Helen, a strong and resilient woman, broke down in tears when confronted with Dr. Wallace's accusations. "I wanted to spare you this, my daughter," Helen said between sobs. "Your father. He was a good man, but he made a mistake that haunted him until the end of his days." Helen told Sophia the story of Charles Edward. He was her father's best friend and business partner, Robert Brand. Together they built the company that was now the family's empire. But Charles Edward had an addiction: gambling. He fell heavily into debt and began embezzling money from the company to cover his losses. Robert, upon discovering this, tried to help his friend. He covered the debts, gave Charles Edward a second chance. But the addiction was stronger. Charles Edward continued to gamble and embezzle money. On one fateful night, after a heated argument with Robert about the debts, Charles Edward was found dead in his office. The police ruled it a suicide, but Robert always carried the guilt. "Your father felt responsible, Sophia," Helen explained. "He thought he could have done more to help Charles Edward. He hid the truth about the debts to protect his friend's memory and to avoid a scandal that could have destroyed the company and the family. He used the fortune Charles Edward left behind to pay off the debts and secure the company's future. He never benefited from his friend's death, but the guilt consumed him." Sophia listened in shock. The story was tragic, but it wasn't what Dr. Wallace had implied. Her father was not a murderer, nor was he corrupt. He was a man who had tried to protect a friend and his family, and who had carried a heavy burden in silence. Sophia's anger toward Dr. Wallace intensified. He wasn't just manipulating the truth, he was defaming her father's memory. She knew she had to clear her father's name and unmask Dr. Wallace once and for all. Daniel, upon hearing the full story, saw an opportunity. Dr. Wallace has no proof of murder, Sophia. He's using the tragedy to destabilize you. But we have the proof that he is a criminal. And now, we have the full story to expose him. Richard, with his legal expertise, saw a chance to turn the tables. We can use this defamation attempt against him. He's not only lying, but he's trying to intimidate a key witness. This only reinforces his criminal character. The team united again, stronger and more determined than ever. The truth about Sophia's past, however painful, had become a weapon. They had the full story, the evidence, and the determination to fight for justice. The final battle was about to be fought. Dr. Wallace had underestimated Sophia's strength and the truth. He had tried to use the past against her, but unknowingly, he had ignited an even greater flame in her heart. Do you think Sophia will succeed in clearing her father's name and unmasking Dr. Wallace once and for all? The question, will Sophia succeed in clearing her father's name and unmasking Dr. Wallace once and for all, resonated with the force of a mantra. The answer was a resounding yes in Sophia's mind. The pain of the revelation about her father's past had transformed into a steely determination. Dr. Wallace had not only attacked her, but he had desecrated the memory of a man who, despite his mistakes, had acted with honor. The strategy was carefully crafted by Daniel and Richard. They knew the best way to fight a lie was with the truth, and the best way to unmask a manipulator was to expose his own manipulations. First, Daniel, with the help of his team, delved into the police archives, searching for the case file on Charles Edward. He found the complete report, which confirmed Helen's version. Suicide, with clear evidence of gambling debts and embezzlement. The report also detailed Robert Brand's efforts to cover his friend's debts and protect the company. Next, Richard prepared a defamation lawsuit against Dr. Wallace based on the unfounded accusations made at the press conference. The intention was not just to punish Dr. Wallace, but to use the lawsuit as a stage to expose the truth about Robert Brand's past, and at the same time reinforce the accusations against Dr. Wallace. Sophia, for her part, decided she would not hide. She granted an exclusive interview to one of the city's major newspapers, telling her side of the story. With a voice thick with emotion but firm, she spoke of the tragedy of Charles Edward, of the burden her father carried in silence, and of the honor with which he led the company. She also exposed Dr. Wallace's dirty tactics, showing how he was trying to divert focus from his own illegal activities. Sophia's interview was a turning point. Public opinion, which had been manipulated by Dr. Wallace, began to turn against him. Her father's story, told with such emotion and sincerity, touched people's hearts. Meanwhile, Daniel and the trusted police captain took action. With irrefutable proof of the fraud in the land acquisition and the money laundering, they obtained a search and seizure warrant for Dr. Wallace's offices and his shell companies. The operation was a success, revealing a vast network of corruption that extended across various sectors of the economy. Dr. Wallace, cornered, tried to flee, but Daniel's network was more efficient. He was intercepted at the airport, trying to board a private flight out of the country. Dr. Wallace's arrest was reported in all media outlets, and the city celebrated the downfall of another corrupt figure. The victory was complete. Robert Brand's name was cleared, and Charles Edward's memory was honored. The land, which had been acquired illicitly, was returned to the city and designated for Richard's urban revitalization project. The ecological park and cultural center became a symbol of the city's resilience and the victory of justice. Sophia, Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia gathered to celebrate. The journey had been long and full of challenges, but they had prevailed. The friendship and partnership between them had strengthened, and the city, now more aware, began to tread a new path. The Sophia Brand Studio became a beacon of creativity and integrity, and Sophia an inspiration to many. She had found her voice, her strength, and her purpose. The humiliation of the past had transformed into a catalyst for a life of meaning and impact. Sophia Brand's story was proof that, even in the greatest adversity, truth and justice always find a way. And that, with courage and determination, it is possible to rewrite one's own destiny. Do you think that after all this, Sophia has finally found the peace she was searching for? The final question, has Sophia finally found the peace she was searching for, hung in the air, filled with hope and a certain lyricism. The answer, Sophia realized, was not a simple yes or no, but a yes and so much more. The peace she found was not the absence of challenges, but the serenity of knowing she was on the right path, living an authentic life with purpose. Years passed. The ecological park and cultural center, named Hope Park, flourished in the heart of the city, a vibrant testament to the struggle of Sophia and her allies. The Sophia Brand studio expanded, becoming a hub of innovation and an example of a socially responsible company. Sophia, now a renowned entrepreneur and an influential voice in the defense of ethics and justice, continued to inspire. Her relationship with Lucas deepened, transforming into a mature and supportive love. They married in an intimate ceremony at Hope Park, under the shade of the trees Sophia had helped plant. The life they built together was a reflection of their values, passion, integrity, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of their community. Daniel, the loyal brother and strategist, remained her confidant and protector, always one step ahead, anticipating challenges and celebrating victories. Richard, the idealistic lawyer, became a dear friend and a partner in numerous social causes, fighting tirelessly for a more just world. Lucy and Patricia, free from the weight of the past, rebuilt their lives. Patricia, now a talented interior designer, frequently collaborated with Sophia's studio, and the friendship between the two women, once unlikely rivals, was an unbreakable bond forged in adversity. Beatrice and Dr. Wallace, for their part, paid for their crimes. Their downfall served as a grim reminder that unbridled ambition and corruption, no matter how powerful they may seem, eventually meet their end. On a sunny afternoon, Sophia walked through Hope Park, hand in hand with Lucas. She watched the children playing, the artists performing, the families enjoying the space that was once a vacant lot, a stage for injustice. She felt a deep gratitude. The public humiliation, the pain of betrayal, the fight against corruption, it had all contributed to shaping the woman she had become. She was no longer the naive, vulnerable young woman from the engagement party. She was Sophia Brand, a woman who had turned her pain into strength, her humiliation into inspiration, and her voice into an instrument of change. The peace she felt was not the absence of scars, but the wisdom that each one told a story of resilience. And looking to the future, Sophia knew that while new challenges might arise, she was ready. She had her truth, her love, and her voice. And that was all she needed. End of story. Wow, what an intense journey, right? From Sophia's public humiliation at the engagement party, through her incredible personal and professional reconstruction, to the dismantling of a complex corruption network led by figures like Beatrice and the fearsome Dr. Wallace. We saw Sophia turn pain into strength, find unexpected allies like Lucas, Daniel, Richard, Lucy, and Patricia, and fight not just for her own dignity, but for justice for an entire city. Every chapter was a roller coaster of emotions, revelations, and twists that kept us hooked from start to finish. If you were moved, cheered, surprised, and inspired by Sophia's story, be sure to show your support. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming compelling narratives. Leave a like on this video to help us reach more people who love good stories. Comment down below what you liked most about Sophia's journey, which character made the biggest impression on you, or what your favorite scene was. And of course, share this video with your friends and family so more people can be inspired by this incredible saga of resilience and justice. And if you're hungry for more excitement and captivating stories, don't worry. To the left of your screen, you'll find a playlist packed with other incredible narratives that will keep you hooked from beginning to end. Click there and dive into new worlds. You're next. Literary adventure is just a click away.